Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
This is a podcast where every week we review a classic pro wrestling event from a streaming service.
That classic pro wrestling event could be a pay-per-view, a major television special, a territory-era arena event, or in this case, a non-pay-per-view direct-to-home video supercard from ECW, as they were on the verge of going from being Eastern to Extreme.
Every single week we fire up the randomizer, and that's the machine that picks what show from a streaming service we're going to see. It's completely at random, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In this case, super interesting, really fascinating. This is a show I had not seen. And you can find out what show we're going to review every single week by following us on social media. Every Thursday we post on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, what show we're going to be reviewing that week. So make sure you're following us at Wrestle at Random on Twitter and Instagram. That's the best way to interact with the show is via Twitter. You can also find us facebook.com/wrestling at random.
And make sure to shoot us a message on Twitter. We are always happy and interested, and it's fun to engage with people as they listen to the show and sometimes go back and watch the show that we're reviewing. And it's always interesting to see what people's thoughts are and if their takes on the shows line up with ours or if they got something completely different out of it.
And it doesn't even have to be this week's show. Tell us what you think of any show in the back catalog.
It's bursting at the seams with over 20 episodes in the back catalog as we record this one.
Absolutely. All of them available free of charge at wrestlingatrandom.com or anywhere.
One other quick note,
to podcasts,
Jeremy, that I just want to throw in there is that if you like listening to classic wrestling podcasts, you're hearing about classic wrestling, but you are sometimes you find it daunting the length of shows that are out there, do not worry with ours. We try to keep it to an hour to an hour and a half. Most often it's probably right around that hour and 15, hour and 20 range. So easily digestible for your commute if you still have one of those. If you're working, you want to listen to it on your lunch break or just driving around running errands. That's
treadmill
part of what
time.
We're here
we
to
always
do.
Want to be there for you on your hour treadmill or workout as well. So absolutely.
Just walk around the neighborhood and hear us talk about random good or terrible pro wrestling and just cackle and wonder, have people in your neighborhood wondering what the heck you're listening to.
And oftentimes you're going to run home and fire up one of these matches that we talked about here.
Yes.
So let's take you back. You mentioned this is a super show from ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling, soon to be Extreme Championship Wrestling. This is their Hostile City Showdown show from June 24th, 1994. In 1994, wrestling had endured years of negative publicity from WWF's steroid trial. The business decline started for all U.S. companies in about 1992, and it continued into 1994. While Vince McMahon was on trial for steroid distribution, WCW had just signed Hulk Hogan and were hoping to turn their business around. While WWF and WCW were rebuilding, ECW was being born. ECW at this time was still Eastern Championship Wrestling. They were trying to put out a product that was different. It was hardcore wrestling. And they would eventually become Extreme Championship Wrestling and expand nationwide, including debuting on pay-per-view in 1997. But at this point, in 1994, ECW had to rely on videotape sales and trading. And the magazine publications covering them as well.
Yes, that was, I guess you wouldn't say word of mouth, but that was not actually seeing the shows. That was my introduction to ECW right around this time period in 1994, was seeing, Inside Wrestling, PWI, the After Mags. They were all over ECW as something different. And you would see these pictures of these crazy, crazy things that were happening. You'd read these articles and you were desperate to see these shows, but living in the Midwest, there was pretty much no way to do that.
This show drew 1,390 fans to the ECW Arena, a wrestling arena / bingo hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We open with a graphic and the voice of Joey Styles welcoming us to a great night of Eastern Championship Wrestling from the ECW Arena in Philadelphia.
And this is Joey Styles, as he was at that time period through the majority of ECW, actually, calling this show by himself, providing play-by-play and color commentary all in one. And of the 3 shows that we've done, I believe 3 shows for we've reviewed of ECW, I thought this was by far the best Joey Styles was on any of these 3 shows was on this night.
Yeah, and if you think back to the commentating teams of 1994, absolutely Joey Styles was unique, and he was absolutely refreshing after hearing, Jim Ross is still the best in the business, but Joey Styles was an up-and-comer and someone who, we would look forward to hearing call play-by-play for many years to come, and this was a great showcase for his talent.
Well, it was a much more confrontational style, which was driven, I'm sure, by Paulie, but a much more confrontational style of announcing than you would see in the other promotions. And it was indicative and illustrative of what ECW was at that time, and really continued to be throughout its run. But at this time was that they were attempting to carve their niche out of what they're going to be. And so throughout the show, you have Joey Styles talking about how, we don't, everybody that's here at this sold out show actually paid, and, taking shots at Atlanta and taking shots at Stamford. But because it's so early on in ECW's run, and really it's pre-CW, I mean, this is, like you said, this is a couple months before they officially go extreme in name, at least. But this is them carving their spot out and doing everything they can to show you that they are different from the other promotions. And it feels more authentic and less try hard than the later shows, which we've reviewed on earlier editions of this podcast.
We get a graphic for Tommy Dreamer versus Hack Myers. And let's take time out for a quick fashion corner on Hack Myers.
Yes. Well, yeah. We'll bury the lead and go with Hack Myers first.
Yes.
Hack Myers, he's wearing, it's hard to tell whether I guess you never really know in the early to mid 90s where Zubaz begin and pajama pants end.
These are total Zubaz pants. Absolutely.
He's somewhere on that continuum for sure. He's got a singlet under, tucked into his Zubaz / pajamas. He has a haircut that actually would look much more in place for modern day indie wrestling than it would have in 1994.
Very true.
He's a big man. He's not a particularly well built man, but he's not like out of shape. He's not huge. He's not obese. His opponent.
Wait. You just glossed over the leather biker vest and leather biker hat that he also had on. Like Village People-esque with his outfit here. Yeah, so then Tommy Dreamer comes out. And
22-year-old Tommy Dreamer, who Joey Styles at times refers to him as a complete, pure athlete.
Yes, he's a candidate for the NWA Rookie of the Year, we're told. Yes. And he's got his flashy ring jacket on. And
he's looking like to me, the best way you can describe him is he looks like the lost member of the Fantastics.
It was very flashy, but he takes this jacket off, and the dude is in phenomenal shape.
The best shape Tommy Dreamer has ever been in.
I've never seen this jacked version of Dreamer before. Absolutely.
Jacked may be a bit strong.
No. He had muscle definition, which I've never seen in Tommy Dreamer. This was pretty impressive.
Yes, by Tommy Dreamer standards, physically, he looked great. And just full disclosure, Tommy Dreamer, as time went by and when we actually got ECW in Chicago and I was able to watch that on a regular basis, Tommy Dreamer was by far my favorite ECW wrestler. So I'm not knocking him here. I'm just saying, I don't know that I would say jacked, considering especially some of the recent late 80s, early 90s WWF shows that we've reviewed here where everyone was jacked to the gills and then some.
That's fair. But not only is Tommy Dreamer scale. Absolutely.
He is in the best shape of his career, undoubtedly. And what this man is wearing, if you're used to Tommy Dreamer coming out wearing the black pants and the black ECW t-shirt, that is not Tommy Dreamer here. He's wearing long black tights, but they are tights. He is wearing suspenders and he has purple trim on the top of his trunks. Joey Styles refers to him as a pretty boy that had to win over the ECW hardcore fans. And it's interesting because Joey Styles refers to Tommy Dreamer throughout this match as though he's already won over the hardcore fans. But as you watch this match and you hear the crowd just absolutely, they're just all over Dreamer. It would be a little while yet before the transformation of Tommy Dreamer from pretty boy to hardcore icon ends up happening. No, and it does not happen in this match.
It does not. And he even tried at the beginning of the match to win them over by grabbing a New York Rangers jersey and stomping on it to get the Philly fans behind him. And they did appreciate that gesture, but they were quickly not behind the pretty boy, Tommy Dreamer.
That is true, although I don't think that ring announcer Bob Ortiz, who's great and such a perfect fit for ECW, but I don't think he did Tommy Dreamer any favors when he introduced him as being from, quote, Dreamland, USA.
It's a quick start by Dreamer. Myers tries to go to the top, and the big man slammed off by Dreamer. People, again, like we mentioned, are not behind Dreamer here. And we get a let's go Hack chant and a Dreamer sucks chant. Dreamer tries to backdrop Myers again, but Hack throws him down by the hair.
That was awesome. That was one of those little moves that I love, where instead of the usual, you set for a back body drop, the guy bouncing off the rope will just, usually kick the guy in the chest if he's going to counter. Here, he just runs towards Dreamer as Dreamer is doubled over, grabs him by the hair, and throws him back first to the mat. I love that.
We hear Joey Styles sarcastically say, "This could be the beginning of Hackamania."
We also have, at one point, Joey Styles refers to Tommy Dreamer and says he, quote, wrestles like a junior heavyweight. I love Tommy Dreamer. I thought he was fine in this match.
Totally.
But I would not say that the man wrestled like a junior heavyweight. Although, I guess, not quite as technically sound, but maybe more like a Norio Hanaga junior heavyweight from our first New Japan show that we reviewed, rather than like a Jushin Liger or a Great Sasuke type of junior heavyweight, if we're talking stylistically.
Dreamer's down. His head and neck are across the bottom rope. Myers on the apron drops a leg across the back of Dreamer's head.
The old Undertaker spot.
The old Undertaker spot, yes.
Which he then follows up with a move that I feel like we've seen many Undertaker monster of the month sort of opponents do. They put him in a Hack put him in a nerve hold here in 1994 in the ECW arena. Yeah, did not expect to see that move.
No, and the fans were not cheering Dreamer to fight out of this.
They were not
hold.
willing him to for his nerves to recover here and get to his feet.
Dreamer kicks Hack Myers low. The ref didn't see it. DDT by Dreamer. This was not his finisher yet. I feel the people only like Hack because they hate Dreamer so much.
Yes, but Hack Myers was he was one of those early ECW cult favorites. I think it was certainly accentuated by their disdain for Tommy, but he was one of those guys that they just kind of decided they were going to cheer for. And truth be told, I expected him to be much worse in this match than he was. He was perfectly acceptable.
He totally was, yeah.
As an opponent for 22-year-old Tommy Dreamer in an opening match. Hell, he took the Bret Hart buckle bump.
This led to the finish. Dreamer sends Myers into the buckle, chest first, takes the Bret Hart bump. Dreamer to the top rope, splash off the top, gets the 3 count. Your winner, Tommy Dreamer.
Yes, my notes are Tommy hits flailing top rope splash that was supposed to be a frog splash. Tommy was so miscast as a technical babyface.
100%. We get a graphic for Chad Austin versus Don E. Allen.
A graphic for these two men. And talk about a fashion report. I don't think we've seen two men matched up against each other in the months of doing this podcast that have looked more like geeks, jobbers, wimpies, whatever you want to call them, than these two men. Donnie Allen comes out. He is the opposite of in shape. He is wearing a blank black singlet, but it also might be a t-shirt. I can't really tell due to the low fidelity of this broadcast, which I'm not knocking. I want ECW to be lo-fi. His opponent, Chad Austin, is wearing an orange singlet.
Now,
And I am not doing justice to describing
No.
how bad the gear is on these two men.
I have
And at this point, I am equal parts not looking forward to this match and looking forward to this almost more than anything we've reviewed on this show.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out who either of these guys are. I have no idea. And
yeah, I remember so these are names. Like when you were following promotions back in the day, strictly via magazine, there would be names such as Don E. Allen, who you would never see pictures of, but you would always see the results of when you were reading the results of shows. And so you had in your head what these men looked like. So it was always really strange when you finally saw a picture or you finally saw a video. Did they live up or down to what your imagination had them being?
during the intros for the match, 911 hits the ring, stepping over the top rope. He's got Paul E. Dangerously with him, and I immediately thought, oh, Paul E. Dangerously is mad that Don E. Allen is going with the E, and he's going to put an end to this. So Paulie's directing traffic. 911 chokeslams the ref while Allen and Austin are trying to hit him. No effect at all on 911.
Let's explain, by the way, the 911 phenomenon. 911 was a guy who wasn't much of a wrestler, but he was big and physically imposing, but in sort of like a more of an old school territory way than like a big muscular way. He looked like a guy who you would not want to cross paths with at 3 a.m. in a dark truck stop. And that's kind of how he wrestled, if you could call it that. He really didn't do matches. The whole thing was like, there would be matches like this where the crowd would just be all over the guys that were wrestling. They would chant 911. Then this large man would come out and choke slam everybody in sight and then leave. In some ways, it's the template they then followed years later during Sid Vicious's brief run in ECW.
911, like you said, choke slams both Austin and Allen at the same time. Styles informs us that this is the referee that disqualified 911 in his last month's match during that show. Todd Gordon then comes into the ring. He's the owner and commissioner.
Well, yes, he's the owner, and then we, it's the pun on Commissioner Gordon,
yeah,
like Batman.
yeah.
So that's why they call him Commissioner Gordon as well, wink and a nod. But yes, it's the at that time owner of ECW, Todd Gordon, and he gets choke slammed twice in very, very awkward fashion.
Oops. Yeah, scary. Yeah.
This answers the question: what would a choke slam look like if the man getting choke slammed had no idea how to get choke slammed? That's what happens here with Todd Gordon. Like, you could tell he's trying to assist the move, but he has no idea how to help 911 pick him up.
Styles was funny here. He screams, "Let him sign my paycheck first."
Yes. Which you then think years later with Paul Lee, and it's like, wow, yeah. Little did he know.
Dreamer comes out to get the jobbers out of the ring, then goes to help Gordon as 911 attacks him. Dreamer chokeslammed as well. The fans are chanting 911. 911 leaves the ring by jumping over the top rope all the way to the floor. I was surprised by that move.
Yes. Well, 911 also, he's in that great line of wrestlers who are tall, but not actually tall enough to step over the top rope. So they have to they still want to appear big. So they try to do it, but it doesn't always work. Here, he just jumped over, but he's one of those guys that it's funny to see walk over the top rope. There was also a great line from Joey Styles where he says that Paulie Dangerously has always been the psycho yuppie, but now he's just a bona fide psychopath. And he looks it. He looks like if Paul E. Dangerously had been on a bender for a week, but was still wearing Paulie Dangerously clothes. That is the aesthetic of Paul E. in 1994 in ECW as a manager.
I had to look up what happened to 911. And he actually went to WCW in 1996 and 97.
Wasn't he Big Al or something?
He wrestled under the names Tombstone, Sledgehammer, and Big Al.
Wow, I remember the Big Al thing. I have zero recollection of Tombstone and the Sledgehammer.
I have no recollection either. No.
Wow.
The Pit Bull with his manager Jason versus the Tasmaniac in a dog collar match.
In a dog collar match, but as I was watching this, Jeremy, I was thinking of you as this match started to unfold.
Because
And the fact that
of
this
the
is
rules?
a dog, well, yeah, the rules, quote unquote.
Yes.
This is a dog collar match, which dog collar matches are contested under the same set of rules as a chain match, which we've covered on this podcast before, a leather strap match, sort of any match where two men are tethered together by something that can also be a weapon. The idea being that you have to drag your opponent to each corner consecutively, all four corners, and once you touch the fourth corner uninterrupted, you are victorious. Here, we have a couple things.
Well,
first,
let me describe the dog collar situation here. So yeah, this is each man has a collar around his neck and then a long chain connecting the collars.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was ready for the normal rules of this match. Except that as the match went on, we found out you can also win by pinning the guy, which I was completely not expecting.
Well, you can also win by pinning guy. The other thing you can do, though, is you can just walk to each corner and not drag the guy.
You don't have to pull a guy. No, you can just walk to the corner. Yes, it was, like I said, it was a long chain. It was too long for this match.
It's a long chain and a small ring. So that is an odd combination. However, I do think that we'll get to one particular spot in this match where I think this is actually why they had, at least the pin thing, I have no idea, but why they had you didn't have to drag your guy across, because we got one great, violent, terrifying spot out of that version of the rules.
So the Tasmaniac, you might know as ECW Human Suplex Machine Taz, future a wrestler and announcer in WWF, and now announcer manager in AEW as well. So that's the same Taz as the Tasmaniac here in early ECW.
He is barefoot. He is wearing caveman gear. I don't recall. I couldn't tell if he had face paint here. I know earlier on in his career in this gimmick, he did have face paint. It's also noteworthy to me because I had forgotten about this, and then I went down a little bit of a Tasmaniac rabbit hole, at least in terms of just the background of his career. And I had completely forgotten he did tours of New Japan Pro Wrestling as the Tasmaniac.
Taz, he runs into the ring and is immediately clotheslined by the chain that's attached to the dog collar.
Yes. Well, what was going on was that the Pit Bull and his manager, Jason, a favorite of this podcast, I say that facetiously, we're each holding ends of the chain, so they clotheslined him with the chain as he ran in, and then he gets stomped by the Pit Bull. The one thing I noticed here was that we're several matches into this show, and then here we finally get a ringside camera shot. Up until this point, I thought it was just going to be a single camera, hard cam shoot. And that is one of my frustrations with this show, is there are certain matches where we get the ringside camera. There are other matches where we don't get the ringside camera. And for some of the matches where we really needed that additional camera, we don't have it.
Pitbull throws Taz over the top to the floor. The chain then forces the Pitbull over the top rope as well. They brawl outside. Taz grabs a chair from a ringside fan and hits Pitbull with it. This is one of the things I loved about ECW that I forgot about. Like, they don't get chairs from under the ring. They get chairs from ringside. And they get it from the fans.
That era and the ECW arena. Another thing that's noteworthy is that all the fans that you would see in the ECW arena years later, all the noteworthy fans, Hat Guy, Sign Guy, Rob Zombie Guy, all those guys were here even back in 1994 in their normal, customary front row seats. If you watch shows from the ECW arena on TV, you could kind of set your watch by where those guys were going to be standing. And at this point, like you said, when chairs are grabbed from the crowd and they're hitting each other with them, this is when Joey Styles says, "You have never seen anything like Eastern Championship Wrestling. I'm telling you this as a fan who has seen everything." And honestly, in 1994, you'd be hard-pressed to disagree with Joey Styles here. It was hyperbole, but it was also true.
Very true. They fight over the rail into the fans, and they are fighting in the front row. Pitbull choking Taz with the chain. Back in the ring, Pitbull touches three corners.
Well, before that, can we mention that Joey Styles calls this a dream match? And his credibility from what I just said a minute ago to that just plunged in that moment.
It might have been at the time, but this is where Pitbull touches the three corners, but he's not actually dragging his opponent to do so. Looks very non-impressive or dramatic, watching him walk around the ring to each corner. As he goes to the fourth corner, Taz pulls hard on the chain, pulling Pitbull down hard to the ground. This was so brutal.
It was horrific, and it was exactly why, like I said, I think that they had it this way so that there'd be a reason for him to be this far away from Taz, for Taz to be able to pull that. And yeah, he pulls on the chain, and the angle at which the Pitbull's neck turns as he goes down to the mat is just horrifying.
Taz gets three of the corners, but he's hit with the chain in the back of the head.
We also, at this point, I'll note that in this match, and when we did have ringside camera shots, we get a lot of those MTV-style diagonal camera shots that ECW would do at the time to, again, try to show they're edgy and different.
T-bone suplex by Taz, which we're all familiar with. He gets a near fall out of that. Pitbull muscles the Tasmaniac up for a power bomb and hits it.
I write, dangerous and shaky power bomb. And this is also the moment where Joey Styles calls Pitbull, quote, a complete athlete.
Pitbull wraps the chain around Taz's neck as they're back-to-back. So he's holding him, holding the chain. They're back-to-back. Pitbull starts touching the corners. And every time Pitbull touches a corner, Tasmaniac touches the same corner. So after touching three corners each, Taz hits a suplex and then gets a 3 count. Not touching the fourth one. Your winner's Tasmaniac, but I'm wildly confused by this.
Yes, as this is happening, I'm like, this is brilliant. As they go to each corner, like you said, you described it perfectly. And I'm like, he doesn't even see that Taz is doing it. Taz is clearly gonna suplex him and then touch the fourth corner.
That's it. No,
it's a perfect finish. But instead, he just goes for the pin. He wins. The match is over. I don't understand it at all. Then we have Pitbull number 2, which answers the question, which I didn't recall. Like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, well, there's Pitbull 1 and Pitbull 2. Why are they just calling this guy Pitbull? But apparently Pitbull 2 had been gone for years. He comes in, he attacks Taz. The one thing they do that's cool is they do this weird double team where they do the throw the guy off the ropes. Pitbull 2 drops down. Pitbull 1 hits a shoulder block while Taz is in the air, and then Taz lands back first on Pitbull 2. Weird, but cool.
Yeah, this ends with them hanging Taz over the top, choking him with the chain and the collar. Beat down by the Pitbulls.
My other notes here was basically that, there's the Pitbulls were beloved at times in ECW. But if you watch it now, and like you said, we watched the show from 2000, we watched the show from 1998. If these guys debuted in 2000, they would have been just raked over the coals as an example of the lameness of late stage ECW compared to early ECW.
The Bruise Brothers versus the ECW World Champion, the franchise Shane Douglas, and his partner, Mr. Hughes.
No, it's the Roughneck Mr. Hughes.
That's right.
We heard that 400 times during this show.
The Bruise Brothers are Ron and Don Harris. They would go on to be the Disciples of Apocalypse, the DOA in WWE, and Creative Control in the dying days of WCW.
And then in TNA, revealed themselves to be Nazis. So the less we say about the Bruise Brothers, the better. I was uncomfortable watching them here. It was another act that I had completely forgotten about. And it would have been better off that way, but they are certainly visually striking when you see them, in that they are giant men that are identical twins, with huge long hair. And at first glance, they seem impressive until you see them wrestle.
All 4 men start brawling immediately. Douglas thrown, face first onto a table. And finally, order is restored, and a tag match actually starts.
And when this tag match starts, oh boy, we get this like big heavyweights can move sort of spot between Ron Harris, I believe, and Mr. Hughes. And then Ron Harris manages to mess up, or I guess combined, they collaborate on the worst hip toss I've seen in the history of pro wrestling. And that at this point, Shane Douglas tags in, and Joey Styles calls him, quote, the wrestler of the 90s. And I just have to note that it's this weird time, like visual presentation wise for Shane Douglas, because he has not gotten bigger like he did as years went by. Not that he was out of shape, but he just was physically bigger. His hair is cut short like we would see in later years, but he is still wearing the tassel boots. He's like half dynamic dude Shane Douglas, half franchise Shane Douglas here in 1994.
It quickly breaks down into a 4-way brawl on the outside again. Douglas slams a Harris on the floor, and Joey Styles tells us that Douglas has an open challenge out to WCW World Champion Ric Flair and WWF World Champion Bret Hart. In 94, it was incredibly rare, if almost never unheard of, to mention other promotions. So
it wasn't done.
It wasn't done. So Joey Styles doing this was actually extremely edgy for them to do.
Well, and Shane Douglas having done that, it was very edgy, and it was part of what ECW is doing, very calculated in so many different ways to differentiate themselves and try to show themselves to the disillusioned wrestling fan here in the early to mid 90s that they were the alternative and they were worth your time and money.
Back in the ring, sloppy offense by the Harris brothers. Douglas is able to hit a belly-to-belly suplex on one of the Harrises. Tags
At that point, Joey Styles says that tells us that Magnum TA taught Shane Douglas the belly-to-belly suplex, which I'm not sure if that's true or not, but let's just go with it. But Joey says that he thinks Shane Douglas does the belly-to-belly even better than Magnum TA.
Mr. Hughes in, but the Bruise Brothers double team him. The Bruise Brothers on offense, they did not feel intense or hard-hitting. I do not like these guys at all. You
also notice that there was a Harris brother. There was one point where they're on the floor, and nothing comes of this, but one of the Harris brothers is feverishly like fidgeting with his wrist tape, trying to pull a blade out.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Either cut himself or help cut one of the other wrestlers, but he is not find it. But like zero effort to conceal this at all. Like Ric Flair, this was not in so many ways.
The guys had a good look, like you mentioned. They were big dudes. They had long hair, beards, but their offense was just sloppy, and it was soft. And
weak looking.
It was soft, absolutely.
Which there's nothing worse as big men that are so intimidating than having weak offense, and that I think that's an accurate way to describe the Harris brothers here.
Chair to the throat, choking Douglas, saved by Mr. Hughes. Douglas gets thrown into the crowd. While in the ring, we get a sidewalk slam by Mr. Hughes. The ref is outside with a Harris and Douglas. Allows Don Harris to... He lightly kicks Hughes in the back, puts Ron on top. The ref takes forever to get back in, finally counts the 3. This finish was horrible.
Yes, and it was befitting of this match.
The finish was a light kick to Mr. Hughes in the back.
It did no one any favors. Certainly, the Harrises didn't look good here doing this, but it certainly did not make Mr. Hughes look like a threat here in ECW, getting with that light feather touch and getting put out. Joey Styles then says, and I quote, "Hardcore tag team wrestling at its best." I disagree heartily.
No, this finish was horrible.
Terrible.
This match sucked.
We then get Mr. Hughes on the mic, which Mr. Hughes is... He's not a terrible wrestler. He's a big man who can move. He has a great look. But if you were going to do a pro and con chart for Mr. Hughes, the promo ability would definitely go in the con column.
No, this promo was terrible. This was horrible.
It was hideous. He just keeps saying that like he won the match. He wants a ref. He keeps saying the Harris brothers are going down over and over again. And then we get Shane Douglas at the end of this saying, "I only have one thing to say." Oh, yes. What? Was that a thing?
I don't know.
Did I miss that?
The The winners are the Bruise Brothers. The losers, all of us that had to watch that match. Ugh, just
Accurate.
awful. Iron Man Tommy Cairo with Peaches versus the Sandman with Woman in a Singapore cane on a pole match.
Yes.
I was very excited for this match to start.
Yes, there's a lot to cover here. And I was excited for this because I vividly remember reading about this match and seeing pictures of this match in the magazines back in the day. And again, Tommy Cairo is one of those guys that, like, the way you'd hear him described in PWI, he sounded like such a badass. I mean, it didn't necessarily come across when you finally saw him, but I just remember having feeling like this guy was going to be awesome. But there's a lot to get through as far as the backstory with this match. We'll
touch on the backstory in a minute. I want to first touch on the rules. So
the rules, such as they were.
You win this match by being the first man to take the cane off the pole, and then the added bonus, you can use it any way you see fit.
Yes. So this isn't the weapon is not something that you use to win. You grab the weapon and the match is over. Basically, rule set wise, this is a ladder match of sorts. There's no ladder, but it's a ladder match of sorts where the prize is on a pole in the corner instead of hanging over the ring. It was strange, and then it gets more absurd as there are some escapades with the very loosely attached pole.
Yeah, we'll get there. So Sandman comes out, he lights a cigarette, and I'm not gonna lie, teenage me thought that was super cool to see a guy smoking on a wrestling show.
That's so much of what ECW was about, though. Was
loved it.
Was appealing to what teenage to early 20s men thought was cool in the mid 90s.
100%. And
they had their finger on the pulse of it, for better or worse. They did. And this match is 100% proof of that. Again, for better and worse.
So Peaches is the real life wife of the Sandman.
Yes, Lori Fullington. We would see her in under her real name in ECW years later, reunited with the Sandman. If you recall, there was a show where she was horrifically pile driven through a table off the apron by Rhino.
And yeah, they would later get divorced. They actually had 3 children together. They would get divorced, but
one of the children was actually used as a young child in a Sandman Raven angle.
Yes, this was a very famous feud with Sandman and Raven, and she and her son would both appear as part of it.
Yes.
So in this match, the Sandman tries to go for the cane right away, but Cairo.
Before we get to that, we have to describe these two men a little bit.
Please do.
Sandman. For those of you that aren't aware, and that's probably no one who's listening to this, but this is a younger version of the Sandman, looking really no younger than he does today.
No, not at all.
Every bit the beer gut, rocking the Zubaz, rocking the ECW shirt. I did like that he was introduced as being from California. This is the last vestiges of Sandman's like surfer gimmick from back in the day. So he's introduced as being from California. Iron Man Tommy Cairo is introduced as being a former Mr. New Jersey. I don't know what that means. He is, the best way I can describe him is he is like your classic muscular beer gut guy. He is kind of like a pre-Tommy Dreamer. He looks like the bastard child of Mike Awesome and John Zandig. He's short, but he projects taller than he is. He is just, I don't know. I was just transfixed by everything about the presentation, the overall package of Iron Man Tommy Cairo here. Not, don't get me wrong. He wasn't good, but I was enthralled nonetheless.
But on the Sandman scale, he was totally fine.
On the Sandman scale, he was Bret Hart.
So
Cairo, the Sandman's great. I don't want Sandman to be a good wrestler.
No,
it was so disappointing when he went to ECW and he started becoming, or when he went to WCW and started becoming a good wrestler.
Yeah,
not great, but like passable. I don't want that. No.
Cairo with a German suplex dumps Sandman right on his head. Terrifying. Yes. Cairo off the top does a forward roll onto Sandman. Flying
This is-
body attack, Styles
Yes.
calls. Styles calls it, what a maneuver.
Yes, I thought that was a nice little shot at Vince McMahon as play-by-play. And yes, I also wrote down Tony Schiavone would have called this a flying body attack.
That's good.
I'm staring at that in my notes right now. Hand to God.
Cairo goes for a cover, and the ref is explaining you can only win by getting the cane. And Cairo still wants him to count the pin. I don't understand.
He was probably watching the last match.
That's true.
He thinks gimmick matches can end with a gimmick or just a pin. I don't blame him.
Cairo,
Or not, whatever, not the last match, 2 matches ago, the dog collar match.
Exactly, yeah. Cairo dumps Sandman out of the ring, and he goes through a table on the outside of the ring. Cairo follows up with a leg drop to the floor off the apron. That couldn't be pleasant at all.
Yes, this was like a 7.5 on the Johnny the Bull scale of breaking your ass.
So this cane is very high up on top of a pole that's attached to the corner of the ring post.
This pole is it's about 10 times the height of a pool cue, but no bigger or stronger.
I'm looking at this. Yeah, I have concerns that neither of these guys will be able to climb this pole to get this thing
Well, yeah,
down.
there's no adult human that would be able to climb that pole without it falling, much less these two large men. Not a lot of thought, or not the proper type of thought, was put into the construction of this stipulation match.
Sandman gets control after a few low blows. Slingshot over the top into a splash by the Sandman. Every time, I know he does that move, and every time I'm surprised by it.
Yes. Well, because it looks like he's surprised by it as well. Like as he's doing it, he's kind of wondering, what am I doing?
Sandman and Cairo battle on the top rope by the pole. We get a superplex by Cairo, and the cane falls off the pole.
Yes.
The ref puts the cane in the corner between the turnbuckle pad and the post instead of climbing up the pole to put it back on there. So now I feel like someone can actually win this match. Cairo doesn't go for the cane, but Woman sneaks another cane into Sandman, who hits Cairo with it. He's caning Cairo. The bell rings. The ref throws the match out as a no decision. Sandman canes Cairo over and over. Sandman then shoves Peaches out of the way. He starts smoking a cigarette again while caning Cairo. Sandman grabs the other cane, tosses it to Woman, and she nails Peaches in the back with it.
Yeah, she's behind Peaches, who is consoling Tommy Cairo at this point. She does not see Woman behind her, and yeah, she just clobbers her in the back of that. And these canes are, there's not a lot of give on them. These are not WCW canes. These are not Steve Blackman
when you think
canes.
of kendo sticks with a lot of give, that's not what this is.
These are Singapore canes. They're not kendo sticks. That's for sure.
And so, yeah, you get Woman nailing Peaches in the back, caning her, and the crowd was super into this. They were going crazy. Sandman with
they were
the mic.
chanting "Pay your bill," and I didn't get that at all. I don't know what that meant.
The crowd was chanting "Pay your bill" because Sandman with the mic says it's last call and you need to pay your bill. And that's when the crowd starts chanting "Pay your bill."
Tommy Cairo is bleeding from his arm like he's Wing Kanemaru and Smoky Mountain after going 10 minutes with Kevin Sullivan. And then we have Peaches crying face down in the ring very convincingly. And then Tommy Cairo is like the ultimate dumb jock who doesn't understand emotions. He has no idea how to console Peaches. Like he walks over to her and he's more like baffled by like what this human emotion is that's being expressed by this woman. And like he kind of tries to help her, but he really doesn't. And then the refs escort her out and he just kind of stands there looking confused. I love Tommy Cairo. I don't know why. He's terrible. There were no redeeming values here. He did not do the right thing in helping Peaches after this match, but he is he is a character. He is Tommy Cairo.
Ooh,
That's all I can say.
his back and shoulders were bleeding a lot. Not just like cuts, but he was bleeding there. It was pretty nasty.
It was rough.
And now we get to the match that really turned this show around for me at this point. ECW Tag Team Champions, the Public Enemy, versus the Funk Brothers in a non-title match. We get a video recap showing Paulie Dangerously bringing in Bobby Eaton to help Sabu defeat Terry Funk. Arn Anderson makes the save, beating up beautiful Bobby. And let me tell you, watching Arn really makes everyone else I've seen on this show to this point feel so amateurish.
Yeah,
I mean, that dude is such a pro. And seeing him on this show, wow.
Seeing him throw Arn Anderson left hands and DDTs, and just the presence and the crowd reaction to Arn Anderson coming out. And like, you have to remember at this time, Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton were firmly entrenched in WCW. The people, I would assume, at this show had no idea of this sort of tentative short-term deal that was in place between ECW and WCW, which we'd also see signs of literally and figuratively at the Slamboree 94 pay-per-view for WCW in, coincidentally, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But people lose their minds first when they see Bobby Eaton, and then when Arn comes out, they're just beside themselves.
Yeah, part of that talent exchange deal was ECW could use Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Cactus Jack, and in return, they just had to plug the pay-per-view that you just talked about that was happening in Philadelphia.
Which is amazing when you think about it, that WCW, this huge corporation, or owned by this huge corporation, this big, multimedia mainstream wrestling promotion, was having to rely, or felt they had to rely on ECW to help them sell tickets to their pay-per-view in Philadelphia.
Paulie Dangerously is doing a promo, and he's making fun of Terry Funk's daughters.
This is amazing.
And Terry walks right up, calmly says, "Don't you ever make a remark about my daughters," and then begins slapping the crap out of Paulie. This was amazing. He starts yelling to leave them out of this, and Paulie is backing down. He's absolutely terrified, as he should be. This was awesome. This was so great.
Absolutely. It was Terry Funk at his best, which, granted, that's a lot of things. We talked about Terry on the last show that we did for this podcast, going back to Clash of the Champions 6, where he was on commentary. Here he is just wild Terry Funk, and you believe his anger, you believe his rage here. We then cut to Paul E. recruiting Public Enemy to defend him. Public Enemy attacks Terry Funk at the ECW arena after Arn Anderson abandons Terry Funk. And now we have this match where Terry Funk says the only man he can trust is his brother, the legendary Dory Funk Jr.
I have zero clue what the appeal of Public Enemy was. Why do people like these guys? I don't get it. I never understood.
I loved Rocco Rock. I'm not gonna lie.
I never understood the Public Enemy as an act, as wrestlers. I think they were
definitely one of those had to be there products of the time and place ECW Philadelphia acts that didn't necessarily translate anywhere near as well when they were in the bright lights of WCW. But I mean, it made for a fun dynamic here with the Funks.
Oh, ECW fans love the Funk Brothers like we all do, and.
When I was worried, I was hoping that they wouldn't, get all over Dory, because ECW fans can be pretty rough. They were 100% with Dory here, and obviously Terry as well.
Right away, we get this crisscross and a drop down by Dory, who is old, and then he hits his forearm, and it was super fun. The fans are clearly behind the legends. This is great.
To be fair with Dory Funk Jr., Dory Funk always looked old. I went down a rabbit hole a couple months ago of watching every finals of the All Japan Real World Tag League tournament, which for a decade was the Funk Brothers in the finals against different teams. And it's amazing because you see like these radical changes in the appearance of Terry Funk. He's like short hair, clean cut. Then his hair gets longer. He's got facial hair. His body starts to change. And then you have next to him Dory Funk, who literally looks exactly the same for a decade.
He's got J.J. Dillon syndrome, where they look old all the time, forever. Yeah.
Pretty much. But Dory looked better than I expected him to here. The one thing I noted was that if the Public Enemy wasn't hitting him with a chair, he wasn't selling for them.
Correct. Yes.
That was the only thing he was going to sell. Anything else, he was going to stand there as though he was a corpse vertical.
All Funk's just frustrating the Public Enemy early, which is fun. Dory with awesome forearms, almost like European uppercut style forearms.
Well, yeah, he was the master of that Funk forearm. That was, it didn't go up quite as much, but it's certainly more, of a European uppercut than a traditional North American forearm. And nobody has thrown that better than him. And it was his primary offense in this match.
Funk has Johnny Grunge for what looks like a pile driver, has him in position, but instead muscles him up a little further and it turns into a power bomb. I thought Grunge was going to die.
I did too, and I shrieked. But then by the end of this move being executed, it was perfectly safe. So in some ways, it was a microcosm for Terry Funk in general, looking to the untrained eye like he's wildly out of control, but actually like the best worker in the business.
Funk and Grunge on the outside, chop battle, where Funk is demanding Grunge chop him more, no selling all these chops. Funk with a chair to the head of Rocco Rock. Back in the ring, Dory with a chair hitting Grunge. Rocco hits Funk with the chair. Dory throws the chair at Rocco, hits him with a forearm as he tried a shoulder block. That was fun. Tons of brawling on the outside.
At one point, while the brawling is going on outside, we have Joey Styles say, "Great camera work from our crew." At this moment, we can see absolutely nothing.
Right.
He's not being sarcastic.
No.
He's shouting out a particular person in the production truck for the great job they are doing. And at this point, we can tell they're somewhere, like if we're going from the hard camera out, we can tell they're somewhere on the far right side of the arena. And as it's dark, we can sort of see like old school TV snow in the foreground, but we cannot tell that there are men that they're fighting, who they are, or what they're doing.
Terry and Grunge are brawling in the crowd. It's incredibly hard to follow with one camera because the action's all over. Where was this other ringside camera when we needed it? Because we just get the hard camera panning back and forth because they've paired off on two different sides of the outside.
Yeah. The only thing I could figure, and I'm sure I'm wrong because I can't imagine they didn't show clips of this on TV, but I was thinking maybe for the matches on the show that they taped for TV, that they had the second camera there, and then for the matches that were just going to be on the home video, they only did the hard cam. I'm probably putting too much thought into it.
Yeah,
but
my only guess was that the other camera was in position to be ready for the end of this match comes.
Yeah.
To be closer to the underneath the perch in the balcony area there.
No, you're probably right given the finish. I was going to say the other thing could be that they just tried to get the shots and didn't get anything usable, so they didn't use it. But I think your take is probably accurate.
Grunge rolled up Dory, holding the tights. Dory still kicks out. Grunge is holding Dory on the outside. Rocco with a flip dive over the top wipes out his partner as Dory Funk moved. I was like,
Dory
there's
Funk,
no way he's taking that move.
No, and moved is probably a bit. You're probably giving him a bit too much credit. I would say he lilted. he shimmied would definitely be a bit too much movement. He evaded in the nick of time, but not with particular urgency.
Dory is in the mount beating Rocco Rock, just punches to the face.
This was awesome. Bloodying him with these mounted punches.
Yeah, he's busted open. We get the spinning toe hold by Dory. The crowd loving every second of this. Grunge breaks it up. Terry is down in the first row. He's bleeding everywhere. Paulie dangerously and 911 come out to ringside. 911 chokeslams the ref as he's wont to do. Double clothesline. They cover Dory and Paulie counts 3. And Dory covers one of the Public Enemy, and Terry counts 3.
Well, we
Terry-
also have this moment right before that where Terry Funk picks up what's described as steps, but to me just looked like a giant bar stool and just drops it right on Rocco Rock's head as Terry's standing in the ring and Rocco's out on the floor. That looked uncomfortable.
Terry Funk and Rocco Rock battle all the way up to the balcony area. And Funk
the Eagle's Nest, as it were.
The Eagle's Nest, where Joey Styles is broadcasting from. Funk has a rope or a cable, and he's tied it around Rocco's feet, and he dumps him off the balcony, hanging him upside down by the ankles.
It's like a bungee cord, I think, is what the deal was here.
He's
hanging him upside down like it's, I don't know, he's hanging there like it's the scene from Rocky with the meat locker. That's the only thing I could think of, which I guess is apt in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's lowered down, all the way down, then...
Well, lowered describes care. He is tossed.
He's tossed.
And luckily, the cable is not long enough that his head would hit the concrete.
Terry does throw a chair down at him off the Eagle's Nest, which I thought was hysterical. Dory then comes over. He beats him as he's hanging there upside down. And we're told... so we just see this beating, and then... I looked it up at the July event. This was in June, so at the next month, the Funk Brothers would fight Public Enemy in a barbed wire match. And that is the match that's the famous clip where tons of chairs get thrown into the ring, filling it up. That actually happened in
Terry
the
calls
series.
for the fans to throw chairs. There's literally hundreds of chairs get thrown in the ring. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about this here with this crazy visual of Rocco Rock being hung by his ankles off the balcony. You think of a lot of other things that ECW did, around like the 94 to 96, 97 time period. And a lot of what they did on these shows was built around crazy singular visuals that would then be either be used and or be used in the magazines to show, oh my God, how crazy ECW is, or they would have a short clip or a still of, something like this, or the chairs being thrown in the ring. And that would be the thing that would entice you to buy the home video. So I don't think that was by accident.
ECW TV title. The television champion, Mikey Whipwreck, versus challenger, the Rockin' Rebel, again with friend of the show, Jason, as his manager.
Which I thought it was interesting that Jason, interesting is probably too strong, but I thought it was hilarious that Jason, we've seen in the past Jimmy Hart being an example on that WrestleFest tape where like the announcer or the manager, I should say, will change their look, their gear to match their charge. Jason here, he's still wearing the purple or bluish suit jacket pants, but he changed to a black suit jacket top.
So during the introductions, the Rockin' Rebels introduced as the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, which I knew that line from Mad Max, but I had only heard Jericho use it in wrestling. So I was surprised to hear Rockin' Rebel use it.
This predates Jericho using it. He was also introduced as being from the rock and roll capital of the world, but they don't tell us what city that is. I don't know if that's Dreamland, USA. if he and Tommy Dreamer are actually, neighbors. Mikey Whipwreck here, so the whole gimmick, literally his music, which we get a dubbed fake version of, his music was it Loser Baby, the Beck song? His gimmick was that he was a geek jobber who could take a ton of punishment and had literally never gotten a single offensive move in his career, and yet had become the ECW television champion. He is wearing terrible gear. He's got these dirty white knee pads, this huge oversized Dungeons and Dragons looking shirt. He is, they went all in on Mikey Whipwreck, making him look like a total loser.
And yeah, he won
but a lovable loser.
He won the TV title from the Pit Bull due to interference by the Tasmaniac. So, like you mentioned, he's a total jobber. He keeps defending his title because his opponents get themselves disqualified. That's the only way he's able to hang on to this title.
He's a much more believable version of this character, this act, than the Perfect Event was at Bash of the Beach 2000. Remember that?
Oh, I do.
That was basically their gimmick as tag team champions, even though they were like bigger and more jacked than everybody else in the company. This is much more believable here with tiny, pathetic looking Mikey Whipwreck.
I pulled up Rebel on Wikipedia because I didn't remember him at all, and
Oh God.
he was only really did indie promotions after ECW, and
he was the guy. We were talking about this off air. He was the guy that had the license to be able to run in Philadelphia. So a lot of times, companies, I believe, even Ring of Honor for quite a while in Philadelphia, they would book him on the show. Like he would have the match right after the intermission, the popcorn match. Just so they could have him on the show so they could get the license to be able to run.
Yeah, sad note. 2018, shot and killed his wife before committing suicide and shooting himself. So tragic ending for the Rockin' Rebel. So this match starts with Rebel immediately attacking Mikey. He pulls Mikey's own shirt over his head, like the hockey fight style.
This was Philadelphia Flyers all the way.
Yeah. And here is where I first see just how tiny Whipwreck is. Holy cow, he is extremely tiny. Lots of chops by Rebel. His chest is bright red early. A pile driver by Rebel doesn't cover him.
Hits a big spine buster off the ropes. No cover again. And then goes for a side slam off the ropes. And instead of going for the pin, he gets into it, jawing with the fans.
Mikey shot in, ducks a clothesline, but Jason trips him from the outside. Jason's on the apron. Whipwreck nails Jason, knocking him down to the floor. Joey Styles is excited because this is the first offensive maneuver he's seen from Mikey Whipwreck, although it was on Jason, not his actual opponent.
He screams that we have seen history tonight in the ECW arena.
Rebel clotheslines him over the top rope to the floor. Big chair shot on Whipwreck's back. Back in the ring, Rebel holding Whipwreck so Jason can hit him with a chair. Mikey ducks, and Jason hits his own man with the chair. The Rebel is down. Mikey beats up Jason. Rebel back up with a chair. Double team by Rebel and Jason. The Tasmaniac comes in to make the save for Mikey Whipwreck. Surprised by the non-reaction for any of this from the fans. Like
Whipwreck got a few chances, but yeah, we were still the love for Mikey Whipwreck was still to come with this character.
And the Tasmaniac doing a save run in here also didn't get a big reaction. I don't know if they were just a little exhausted after the Funks match and saving a little something for the next match, but this
match was put in the death spot. If anything, I mean, it's ECW arena, the fans are rabid, but yeah, you're in between the Funks versus Public Enemy with that crazy spectacle that we saw at the end, and then a first-time match in the main event between the biggest up-and-coming sort of hardcore crazy guy, and then a big star that everyone knew was insane. So yeah, I think it just died a death in this spot.
The Pitbulls come out and they start fighting with the Tasmaniac. Rebel and the Pitbulls destroy Taz. As we fade to a graphic telling us the main event, Sabu with Paulie Dangerously and his handler 911 versus Cactus Jack.
I was hyped when the randomizer pulled this match or pulled this show. I looked and saw the main event for this, and I had forgotten. And then we find out as the match starts. I had forgotten at this point. I just hadn't thought about in a while that Cactus Jack was still in WCW. I shouldn't have forgotten about it because I had just seen Cactus Jack in WCW teaming with Max Payne against the Nasty Boys at Spring Stampede '94, like a month and a half earlier than this.
Cactus Jack at this point had already given notice that he was going to be leaving WCW when his contract was up. So he was going to work independently, just working indie shows, which at the time was a very big risk for someone who was making good money in WCW like Cactus Jack was. So
yeah, he would end up sort of plying his trade between working indies, ECW, and then going over and becoming a deathmatch icon of sorts in Japan.
So Sabu comes out in chains, 911 leading him out to the ring.
Yes, like dragging him. Like Sabu is literally, we're not exaggerating here, wrapped in just chain after chain after chain, long links of chain, dragged to the ring. And I had forgotten that this was part of Sabu's gimmick at the time. When he first came into ECW, they would roll him out on like a vertical rolling cart, and he would be muzzled like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
Like
he's such a wild man. He can't.
Yes,
he
so cool.
Can't let him
This
out.
was awesome. Like he's literally rolling around the ring trying to get out of these chains as 911 is holding him back in the corner.
And then we get a great ring introduction by Paulie for Sabu.
Calls him the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal Cactus Slayer.
This is a battle of the crazy men. This should be awesome. I'm so excited. And
a first-time match, by the way, a first-time inter-promotional match as it's billed.
Cactus Jack has an injured shoulder coming to this match, a legit injured shoulder. So he's selling that right away, just coming in. It's
obvious. Like you watch before Joey says anything, you're like, oh wow, why is Cactus Jack's left arm just hanging there? And then they tell us.
Sabu starts the match with 3 kicks to the head of Cactus. That's the start of the match.
3 leaping enzuigiris are literally the beginning of this match. They're the first 3 things that happen.
Sabu knocks Cactus to the outside, teases a dive, but Cactus sees it coming and runs away. I love that.
Leaps into the crowd briefly, jumps over the guardrail.
Sabu grabs a chair from the front row and starts hitting Cactus in the injured arm.
Yeah.
Sabu sits Cactus on the chair outside. So Cactus is sitting in the chair outside. Paulie comes over to hold him in the chair. So Cactus is sitting there as Sabu from inside the ring dives between the top and middle rope, wiping out Cactus with a tackle. This was more brutal looking than it sounds. It was absolutely brutal, and Cactus Jack ends up hurting his back legit, and I don't know if this was one of the... There's one of 10 spots where he could have injured his back. This is definitely one of them.
Yes, this was fantastic, visually impressive. Like you said, it took me a second to realize what was going on with, because again, we just had the hard camera shot, and this was on the opposite side, but Paul holding him there. As you said, Sabu goes through, it's sort of a cannonball suicide dive, just this wild 100 miles an hour suicide dive. And the only thing in the ECW arena that's moving faster than Sabu at this point is Paulie dangerously getting out of the way right before Sabu crushes Cactus Jack. This was great.
Back in the ring, Sabu leaps off a chair in the middle of the ring and kicks Cactus in the corner. Sabu tries it again, but Cactus with a back elbow knocks Sabu out of the air.
This was great. And I also this is one of Sabu's signature spots for many years. I guess you could almost say that it's, the Hardys ripped it off later, and instead of a chair, Matt would lie down on the mat and Jeff would jump off of his back. And I believe they called it the poetry in motion. This was Sabu doing it just with a chair and killing a guy. And then Jack with the back elbow the second time. And then he goes on the offense, raking at Sabu's face. He hits the classic Cactus Jack clothesline over the top rope, left arm with his dangly bad arm. They both go over the top rope. And Cactus grabs a chair. He hits Sabu in the back, hits him in the head. And then we get, I'm sure one of the 10 spots that could have injured Cactus's back or his hip or his tailbone or all of them, the Cactus Jack flying elbow drop off the apron to the floor. No mats, by the way, as if we need to point this out in the ECW arena. I was
about to remind everyone that there's no mats around the ring in the ECW arena, so that's right on the floor. Someone at ringside gives Cactus a frying pan, and he hits Sabu with it. And then he hits himself in the head repeatedly with it.
One of the great things about the ECW arena back then was that it wasn't just chairs that fans would bring and give. There'd be legit stop signs. You would have frying pans, all different sorts of things. Yeah, Cactus hitting himself in the head over and over. You could tell that Cactus Jack was so fired up, even here pretty injured, to be in this sort of environment, wrestling, fighting Sabu.
Cactus misses a flip off the top. He lands right on his back.
Yeah, I did not expect this. This was like your reaction to Sandman doing his slingshot somersault, the fact that he does it every time, but you're still shocked. That's how I was here with Cactus, him actually never doing this. Yikes.
Sabu nails a slingshot leg drop.
Like right to the throat.
Yeah. Sabu and Cactus are both on the top. Cactus goes for a belly-to-back suplex, but Sabu turns in the air, lands on Cactus. Both men tumble to the outside again. Toward the entrance walkway, Sabu backdrops Cactus over the guardrail. Sabu then sets up a table, puts Cactus on top. He jumps off the guardrail with a leg drop, putting Cactus through the table.
And this is all in the entranceway still, which I don't recall seeing too many times in ECW where tables were set up and utilized in the actual sort of entranceway. So that was different.
Still on the outside, Sabu runs at Cactus, who catches him in like a hot shot, clotheslining him across the barricade. They clear out the first few rows on the other side of the barricade. Like push people, get out of the way. They clear
911 is getting people out of the way,
and
he's directing traffic.
Yeah, they set up a table in the seating area where the people were just at, behind.
Yeah, the table's on the other side of the guardrail instead of where it normally would be in between the guardrail and the ring. So this table is in with the paying customers.
911 puts Cactus on the table as Sabu jumps to the middle rope and does a moonsault over the guardrail onto Cactus through the table. This feeling of chaos and craziness around ringside was absolutely unique to ECW. 100%.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I had written something very similar. I know we talked about just before recording this as we sort of debriefed that this match, that moment, everything about this was the real chaos and danger that ECW projected. This is the first time in any of the 3 shows that we've been doing this podcast, any of the ECW shows we've covered, where this really, really felt that way. And even though my first live ECW experience was some 4 years later, this captured as I'm watching this, it took me back to being at an ECW show and that feeling of like 4 huge men brawling toward you, bleeding all over the place. And you realizing like, okay, this isn't like the other wrestling shows I've been to where they're going to try to not hit into me as they're brawling. It's like, I need to get out of the way or I might get hurt.
Yes.
And like that feeling of danger, that excitement, that, like you said, that is, at least at that time particularly, that was completely unique to ECW. And that adrenaline rush, particularly live, you could not get that from anywhere else. And once you experience it once as a fan, you would be chasing that for like the rest of your live wrestling fandom.
Back in the ring, Cactus has a piece of the broken table, nails Sabu with it. Sabu falls back into the corner. Paul E's on the apron. Cactus nails Sabu with a clothesline in the corner, and that's when Paul E hits Cactus in the back of the head with a cell phone. Cactus falls backward. Sabu falls on top of him. We get the 3 count. Sabu is your winner. 911 holds Cactus after the match as Paul E hits Cactus repeatedly with the phone. Paulie actually tries to do a running clothesline, but Cactus moves, and Paulie comically bounces off of 911.
Yes. At this point, we get what Joey Styles says is the most violent chair shot he's ever seen. And here in 1994, I am hard-pressed to disagree. Cactus Jack hits 911 in the head hard with a chair, but it's not just a chair shot. He has the chair open. And he's swinging down, like holding the chair from like the chair back with it open, and just absolutely crushes 911's head here. This was disturbing.
It sounded so brutal on this VHS.
Yes.
How many times dubbed copy that we saw here streaming on the network.
This definitely wasn't the master tape, by the way, because at one point we see the like VHS like play graphic pop up on the screen. There's tracking issues. This is like, this is something you would get off a tape trading site. They did not have access to the master video, clearly.
No, and the crowd was going absolutely insane because I could only imagine what it sounded like inside the arena. They were going nuts for it. That was absolutely brutal. Douglas and Mr. Hughes come out. The Bruise Brothers come out to attack them. Sabu ends up diving over the top onto the pile outside.
Yeah, another double jump off the off a chair onto the top rope and sort of a half dive, half somersault onto the entire pile. We then have Cactus Jack and Sabu brawl all the way into the other corner of the building onto what Joey Styles says is a concession stand, at which point Cactus Jack pile drives Sabu through the concession stand.
This was crazy. This was absolutely nuts, and the people were going ballistic for this craziness over in the corner with Cactus pile driving Sabu through something. They're through the concession stand. It was also like
the visual here of only having the one camera shot. It almost made it more dramatic because like they're on top of something. Cactus Jack pile drives Sabu, and then they just disappear. Yeah. And like you're wondering, did they just go through the earth? Like, are they still going down? And then we don't see them. We can't tell what's going on. They emerge. This was not the hole in the ring like Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. No. They emerge. They go back to ringside, at which point Sabu grabs a glass bottle and shatters it over Cactus Jack's head.
This bottle explodes all over the ring. And
insane.
911 puts a table in the ring, but the way he does it, pushing it over the top rope, the flat part is facing the ropes, and the folded up legs are facing the wrestlers. And Cactus gets thrown into that side of the table, breaking it.
Ugh.
Sabu then does a top rope moonsault onto Cactus, who's laying on the pile of broken table. Cactus gets up, throws the broken table over his head onto Sabu.
And he really has to muscle him for this. This isn't like Sabu doing the table suplex to Sandman, or maybe it was vice versa in the Too Extreme for pay-per-view Kane match. This was, again, the table's broken in half, so he's muscling up the first half of the table, and then like the second half of the table is just hanging on. He somehow is still able to muscle it up and basically suplexes it onto Sabu. This is completely insane. Total and utter chaos and bedlam. Everything that ECW should be and was at its best. And then we go to the back for promos. And oh my God, this promo, Jeremy, from Cactus Jack might be my new favorite promo I've seen in the history of professional wrestling. This was both content and delivery. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen in pro wrestling.
I can't believe I've never seen this promo. And I was not expecting to be blown away as this promo starts, but Cactus has his WCW World Tag Team title belt with him. He was tag champs with Kevin Sullivan at the time.
He did not bring it out for the match, but he had it backstage here.
He spits on it and throws it down because he can't be happy about being a champion because he lost his match. And he also lost the title of most suicidal, ugliest wrestler and Jack Kevorkian's favorite wrestler. The famous suicide assisting doctor there.
Yes.
He says he will eliminate the competition. Sabu, you're better than me.
He says this in like... And again, neither of us are Cactus Jack.
I'm not going to do it.
We can't do this justice, but that may be the strongest case yet on this podcast of us not being able to do justice to what someone says or does.
No,
him here talking about how he has three choices: either to concede, to find a way to outdo Sabu, or the third path, which is eliminate the competition. But just the way he says this, and there's the anger, but the shakiness in his voice. There was never a better promo guy when it came to changing the timbre and the sound of his voice to just make you think he was even crazier than he was and just terrify you more than Cactus Jack. And this is like a tour de force of that type of promo from him here.
He's mad that Paulie didn't call him. He's coming back to ECW. He wanted Paulie to call him because he wanted to help take down WCW, and he's mad, so he's coming back to ECW. I love a classic crazy Cactus Jack promo. This is one of the best I've ever seen. It was great. Cactus, like I mentioned, has a legit back injury coming out of this match, and WCW management was legit not happy with this promo, especially the spitting on the belt part.
Yes, he spits on the belt. He throws it down. He talks about having a contract in Atlanta, but that doesn't mean anything. He has a great line where he He says he has nothing, something along the lines of he has nothing against Sabu other than that Sabu is a little bit better than him. Then he says, but how will you be better than me when you're missing a foot, you don't have a tongue, or you aren't just missing half an ear? And at this point, Cactus pulls up his hair to reveal the half ear. It says, but you won't just be missing half an ear, but the whole ball of wax. Incredible.
Go watch this promo, everyone. Treat yourself to amazing Cactus Jack. We get a Paul E interview after this. He hasn't seen a human enjoy taking pain like Cactus did. No one took everything that Sabu has like Cactus did. Sabu's not here to win a title. He's here to take out Jack and help Paul E take out the entire WCW. An awesome promo to end the show. Back to back, great promos.
Paul says he's obsessed with the demise of the office at the CNN Center. Like, I love it too, because the whole idea, going back to the Dangerous Alliance, which was, 2 years prior to this, the whole story with that was that Paul E had gotten, like, in character and storyline, had gotten fired from his announcer's gig in WCW, and he came back with the Dangerous Alliance to destroy WCW. So the fact that he's here in ECW 2 years later after legit being fired from WCW, and his goal still while in ECW in storyline is that he wants to kill WCW, it makes for just an even more unhinged Paulie Dangerously, and just a sort of a great tying up loose ends story.
Best match for you on the show. It's a 2-match race here.
Oh, it's Cactus and Sabu. I mean, watching it here in 2020 as we record this, and then thinking back to, again, reading in the magazines, people talking about this match and how this was, I mean, Sabu was the guy that everyone just couldn't believe how crazy he was, and people were so interested in seeing what insane thing he was going to do next. And then, Cactus Jack's reputation preceded itself. So to see that match, and then just like you said, to see just the wild, chaotic insanity that ensued, yeah, I would have to go with that.
Absolutely. For the spectacle alone, it was the best thing on the show, but I did love the Funks and Public Enemy match too. That was also good.
Very similar in a lot of ways, with the a lot of the matches in ECW at this time period too. Like, you watch the show and you realize that the matches or the finishes were completely secondary to whatever crazy moment or moments were going to happen after the matches ended. And once you kind of get into that vibe as you're watching this show, the finishes or lack thereof really, at least to me, they really didn't bother me.
Worst match for me was the Rockin' Rebel and Mikey Whipwreck. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah. I would say, yeah, because Dreamer and Hack Myers was fine as an opener. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, the Chad Austin, Donnie Allen thing wasn't even a match. Yeah, I would say kind of by default, it's that. Well, you know what? I'm actually going to say Bruise Brothers versus Shane Douglas and Mr. Hughes.
Oh, God,
because that match had 1994 Shane Douglas in it, and it still sucked. Like, whereas this match was Mikey Whipwreck in 1994 and Rockin' Rebel, it shouldn't have been good, and it wasn't.
You're right.
It furthered the Mikey Whipwreck story. So
you're right. I in talking about that match, I forgot how mad I was about how horrible the Harris brothers were. Yeah, you're right. I think that is actually the worst match.
There you go. Finally, it took months, but I think I've actually changed your opinion.
You've convinced me.
On a worst match.
I forgot. Yes, I have in my notes literally like, we're all losers for watching that match. That sucked.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, but overall, a fun show. It's fun to see ECW in that time period. Highly recommend for at least those 2 matches, and most definitely the promos at the end for sure. So yes, I would agree. Must watch. Recommend.
It's we're 2 months, a month, whatever it is, before Shane Douglas is going to throw the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in the garbage at an Eastern Championship Wrestling show, and declare that belt dead, declare the ECW Championship a world title, and declare it Extreme Championship Wrestling. So we're right on the edge, right on the precipice of ECW really exploding into what it would be. So it's fun to see this, and it's definitely a good sampler of what ECW in its grittiest, most lo-fi mode really felt like.
Like I mentioned at the top of the show, interact with us on Twitter at WrestleAtRandom. And make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast wherever podcasts are found. And make sure you tell your wrestling fan friends about us. We rely on your word of mouth to spread the word to everyone, even your friends who aren't wrestling fans anymore, but maybe did enjoy it back in the day. Go ahead and have them take a trip down memory lane with us. Continue to spread the word. We've been just blown away by the positive comments and the support we've gotten so far. So please continue that. We rely on it, and we appreciate every single one.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. And I'll just close out by saying I am really happy we finally got, via the randomizer, a show that felt like authentic ECW from the ECW arena. We kind of are triangulating on that 95, 96, early 97 time period that was the best of ECW. So I have hopes that at some point in the not cosmically distant future, we'll get one of those shows too.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you too, Adam.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy.
And we'll talk to you again next time.